So let's go on to the last couple of questions from on the blog from C. So we're back up to section A again. So the first, the question about section A, as it says personal experiences, does that mean we can talk about our own understandings or relationships to the question in first person? So the answer to that first question is
yes.
Yes, that's the short answer, yes. And then the next part of this, oh, sorry, did you want to go on?
No, we'll come back to it, I think, yeah.
Does this apply to both questions, even though the first question doesn't explicitly ask for these personal reflections? That's a good question.
So I think we've always been really interested in how students have individually responded to the module, and we've been really happy for people to integrate their first person responses and experiences to the module in our answers. I think within section A, you can see that question 2 is clearly inviting that, but that wouldn't preclude you from answering it in question 1 as well, if you found that you had personal experiences which helped you illuminate your argument. So yes, by all means, I think use personal experiences in both. I think it's going to be more straightforward in section 2, question 2 than question 1, but question 1 is equally inviting of that sort of response if you feel it helps your argument.
We both start with reflecting on the themes, and I think our own, I mean, the idea of the course was to mangle up the kind of the reflections on reading and personal reflections anyway, and they kind of can get quite mixed up in the module, and it sometimes feels a bit artificial to try and separate them, I think. So if your own personal experiences and what you've read and the question are all kind of quite hard to separate, then don't separate them, you know, say what it is what you want to say. It's hard to, it's not only personal experience, it's always personal experiences that are based on, you know, your own life, but also what you've read and what that draws attention to maybe. So getting that dynamic in the essay answer would be really good to see.
And neither is question 2 demanding that you share your personal experiences if you don't feel comfortable to do that. It just says you may. It doesn't say you have to. So you could totally write both of these questions very successfully without using your own personal reflection if you didn't feel that was something that you wanted to do and you just wanted to respond to the question through the literature.
That's the last part of the question as well, isn't it? Do you think it's essential or advised?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Or does it not? No, you had anticipated it, Nicola. Or does it not matter if we do not use our personal experiences?
So I think this comes back to your question, that thing you said at the start, Ian, which is, you know, we're looking for a strong argument and a well-considered response. And so if you choose to use your personal reflections, you've still got to have a strong argument. If you don't choose to, you've got to have a strong argument. So it's really about kind of galvanizing what you feel is the most powerful evidence that you've got to answer the question.
And if the personal experience isn't kind of coming to you easily, it's not such a good idea to force it and to try and think, oh, I better think of something and, you know, exaggerate that because it's what they're asking for. That kind of argument can be a bit not so convincing, really. Sometimes if you're not convinced by what you're writing, then it's going to be difficult for us to be convinced, really. So if it seems a bit ropey to draw on some really thin experience or something, you know, don't do it. I don't think. Play your strongest cards, I think.
Definitely, yeah. We're not sitting on an extra 5 marks to give personal reflections.
Yeah, just for the sake of it, yeah. So the last question is about section B. So should we be quoting the articles or referencing the photo, or just about the key points discussed in the article and expanding and analysing them? So we've kind of addressed this already, but just let's have a quick recap, shall we?
Yeah, so we think it's good to quote from the article. We're really happy if you want to, you know, think about the images in relationship to the article. Yes, do talk about the key points discussed in the article. Yes, do expand, and absolutely you've got to analyse them. Yeah. Analysing them is critical.
Okay, so that's the questions. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen now so you can see that we're both still here. There we are, hello. Thanks for submitting those questions. We hope the answers have been really clear. You've got lots of time to think about this exam, which I think is an advantage, really. Have a proper read of it, and sometimes it takes a while for the ideas to settle. So what we're going to do is we're happy to answer any more questions that anybody answers on the blog page that we've been reading from until, is it the 15th of May, isn't it, Nicola, I think?
Yeah, it's about 5 or 6 days before the hand-in date.
We won't be doing another video, but we will just respond like Nicola has already been doing so. And having said that, well, we just kind of hope that you guys are able to get into the revision and to get back into the vibe of the course, and that when, I guess you might already have started doing this as well, that it's all coming to mind, and you can see interesting things in these questions that you want to talk about based on what we did in the module. So final thoughts, Nicola?
Final thoughts are that it's probably a really good idea to do some early planning now, having got back into the spirit of this, to think through how you're going to allocate these 1,000 words, because it's just going back to what we said earlier, it's very short, so you've got to just allow that kind of thinking, percolating time to make sure you get your strongest ideas, but give yourself a bit of a time limit for this, because although you've got 3 weeks, you can't possibly spend 3 weeks doing it because you've got other stuff to do, and realise that you've probably done most of the hard work already last term, so it's really just about reconnecting with it. And the reason why we decided to stop the Q&A 5 days beforehand was that it's part of wanting you to get yourself prepped early so that you've answered all your questions, and then you can know that you can just write, and really you've just got to hand it in.
And I think, is it worth giving any advice about how to write efficiently in the 1,000 words thing? Because there's certain things that I think people are still learning in the second year about essays, and that's, if you find that your essay is turning into a list where you talk about what one academic has said and then you say it, and you talk about what the next academic said and then you say it. Oftentimes when you do that, those two people have said more or less the same thing. So condense the argument and have a bracket at the end with 2 or 3 or however many sources. So make sure that your essay or your response to the article is based on arguments rather than people. I think that's one thing I think is really important. A lot of people have kind of got to this. It's called synthesizing your knowledge, and I think this was going to be a really good way of having to do this. So that's one thing I would recommend. The other one is that when you finish writing it, write over the word limit, and then go back and just go through every sentence and just say, can I say the same thing in fewer words? Can I make this 14-word sentence 10 words long or something like that? And you can often do that. And then that cuts a big chunk of words out without actually cutting out a paragraph, which is the most unsatisfying thing to do, is to make a good argument, have to chop the whole thing out. So go back. It's about writing efficiently, really. And every time I write anything, I can normally chop out probably like a quarter of the words without changing a single meaning at all. It's just because I've been waffling. And you don't get that right the first time. So nice crisp writing is important. So give yourself some time to edit it nearer the deadline.
Just really think about your paragraphs. In a short essay, it's quite, it's really easy just to say, oh, I'll just write 3 paragraphs. I'll write an introduction, main paragraph, and conclusion. But it would be really good to kind of not do that and get these arguments, which Ian's just taught, these little synthesis bites into separate paragraphs, so that you're forced to really synthesize down into a cluster of thinking, a cluster of your argument, and then you move on to the next cluster of argument and use your paragraphs to do that. And make sure your paragraphs really, on the page, it would be really nice just to make sure that your paragraphs are really clear. So put a big space between each paragraph, at least a line return, so it's really obvious. So just think about the presentation of it as well.
But one more top tip, I always think of these things, is that please do not assume that we know what you're talking about. So if you refer to a particular author and what they've said, explain it as if we don't know, or as if we have no idea what you're talking about, because then it'll force you to explain it, and then we'll understand what you understand. if you skim over the top of things, oh, I don't need to explain that because they know, then that sometimes looks like you don't know either. You know, I don't know. Sometimes it looks like that. That sounds an awful way of putting it, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. Is that if you show us what you understand things to mean, then we can see your understanding, and that's what we're looking for. It's the same with the examples and illustration. If you can, don't assume that we know what's in these articles because we've set them. You have to present your answers if we haven't read the articles by quoting certain bits or summarizing the article in a maybe 2 or 3 sentences. Yeah. I think that's really important, because it shows your understanding, and that's what we're looking for all the time. We're not looking for the right answer, we're looking for you to persuade us of something, and for us to be reading your work and going, oh, I see what they're saying, I know why they're saying that, I can see why they're using that argument, I can see they understand that. That's a really good illustration. That's the sort of thing that we're looking for all the time when we're going through your work.
Great. I think we might be there, Ian.
That's plenty, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's been very nice to have this chance to spend some time with Ian and to chat through the exam papers. I'm going to go and just pop those some answers into the blog now, just so that that's there in written form as well. And we will put the link into the blog page for this recording.
It's possible you might enjoy this as well. We hope so, because we try to make this thought-provoking course and the thought-provoking exam. So hopefully that happens. So enjoy it one way or another. Enjoy doing it or enjoy it being over, or both, I think. And best of luck with it. And see you soon.
Yeah, thanks. Bye now.
Bye.